I am making black fondant, so like to make my own fondant quite a lot. I tend to be fairly cheap with those, so I just decided today I'd make my own black because I need it for a show cake. So I'm not sure how well this will work on my show cake, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway. I've been making my own black fondant, or own fondant just in general, for years. The recipe for this and what I've got started so far is 1.65 kilos of icing sugar. I've got 100 grams of cocoa powder, and that's just in there. I've got, where are we? My corn syrup. So I've got my Korean corn syrup, which is 210 grams of that. And I'm at the point now where I've got everything weighed out. I just need to add my Tylose powder. Now there's different grades of Tylose powder, and this one tends to be very good at gelling, so I'm just going to add 5 teaspoons of Tylose powder, but I'm going to keep them very, very flat, barely full teaspoons. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm fairly familiar with what different powders you're using. You should be fine. I think I might have just lost internet connection. Oh well. So I've got my 1.65 kilos of icing sugar that I have sifted along with my 100 grams of cocoa powder. I've got my 5 teaspoons of, where are we, of Tylose, or CMC, or Tartar, whatever you guys call it. Now I'm just going to move on to the wet mix. So I've got 210 grams of corn syrup, which is fine, I can just leave that over there. The interesting bit is the colouring, so I'm just going to use Americolor Black. And where did I put my scales? So Americolor Super Black. And I'll see how much, so that's 20, yeah, so 20, I'll go 40 grams. Looking at the size of that, now I'll go 30, let's go 35 grams of black. Yep, so 35 grams of Americolor Super Black, and there we go, got that there. And I'm going to add water to that to make up the total water weight to, where are we now? 98 grams of water. So the total water weight made up to 98 grams. And that'll do. Then I've got my Acti-White egg white powder. And that is, where are we? How much of that have I got? I've got 13 grams of Acti-White egg white powder, or just any freeze-dried egg white powder. Put that in there. And I'll use a fork just to mix that up. Let my knee just wander away. Usually I would also add a little bit of glycerin to this as well, but the colouring tends to have similar properties to glycerin anyway, and I don't think it'll be necessary. If I need a little bit, I'll add some later. So I'll just let that settle in there a bit. So that's all good. I've also got 115 grams of kofa. So I've chopped that up and microwaved it. You can use Crisco, you can use any kind of vegetable fat which is solid. Kofa is basically a firmer Australian product. See, Kofa. It's hydrogenated coconut oil, which sounds delightful, but it's fine. Does the job. Now then, let's start mixing this mess. And I'll move that because my wife will kill me if I ruin that tea towel. Grab the cheap tea towel. And I've just got a tea towel under my bowl so I don't leave scratchy marks all over the bench. And that's fine. So I've got all my stuff prepared. I'm just going to grab a spatula, and here we go. Take that off. And I'm wearing gloves today because usually I forget to and end up walking around with purple and pink hands for the next month. It's not quite that bad, but it's close. I'll also add just a little bit of cream of tartar. Cream of tartar just acts as a preservative. It's a powdered acid which is left over from winemaking, I think. Just adds a little bit of sourness to the flavour, but it also acts as a preservative. It's like adding vitamin C to stuff. Then I'll make a well, pour that in, and you don't need the cocoa powder in this. You could replace the weight of the cocoa powder with sugar and just have it straight sugar paste, but I figure I like the flavour of chocolate, and even though this is just going to be on a show cake, at least my show cake will smell and taste like chocolate if anyone's going to eat it, but well, no one's going to eat it, but it'll smell and taste nicer, and it's good to just stay in practice for keeping things tasting like food. I will also put in a teaspoon of vanilla extract as well, so just a little bit of vanilla extract. That's concentrated vanilla. Again, that's more for the smell than anything. I really like the smell of that, so I'll start mixing that now. Oh, I forgot my corn syrup. Let's get my corn syrup going. Always forget something. Usually end up having to knead it in right at the end, which is a great way of doing stuff. Right, just spoon that out. And I've developed this recipe to be pretty specific, so you really need to try and get as much of the liquid as possible. It's a very dry mix, and you really do need all the little bits of liquid. So I'm just going to leave that there because I'll use that later. I'll start mixing the stuff through, and this will take a bit. Let's get my hands in, it's faster. So this smells really good. It smells like vanilla and cocoa so far, which is always a bonus. And this will look like there's not enough liquid to make it all come together. It's just a case of being a bit patient and continuing to mix it around until it all forms a nice ball. And we're getting that. As with anything, the colour will develop as it comes together. And once I've got a good ball of it, I'll turn it out onto the bench. Getting there. Now I'm just moving this around to try and leave the bowl as clean as I can, because again I need all of the liquid that comes off this. And there we go. Getting there. It's been raining all morning, and now we've got cockatoos flying over, our birds having a chat in the other room. There we go. Alright, so it'll look like breadcrumbs. I'll move that off to one side, take my tea towel away, and get some of this kofa. Spread the kofa, although I should have really microwaved this a little bit more. I'll spread this on my bench, and that'll help. This looks really bad, but stop it from sticking to the bench quite as much, and also it helps to fine out the finished product. So the Tylose and the kofa make a really nice smooth product. So I'm going to start working some of that in. A little bit by a little bit, and knead it. So This is probably easier in summer because it's so cold. My Tylose is setting really fast. Oh, that's alright. Not my Tylose, my Kofa. And you'll be able to see it starting to come together slowly. And it will just be like breadcrumbs for the longest time. And then it'll all pull through nicely. Now, one thing with adding the cocoa is it does make a shorter product. And you can start to see that the colour is coming through that now. So we're getting there. This will take a while. It's not a quick process, but it's quicker than running down the shop. So this is what I've got in the house and it works. You can see the fondant is pretty much the same colour as my shirt already. So I'll just keep adding more of that and knead it through. And we'll get that. Now I always try and rush this and say, yeah, we're nearly there, but it takes time. It's at least 10 minutes of kneading. And when it's cold, it takes a bit longer because you're trying to warm everything up. I really should have microwaved that Kofa a bit more. But you live, you learn. The nice thing about this recipe is it works really well for modelling and sculpting with. And to me, it's a little bit easier than working with the marshmallow fondant. That's also just because I can't find cheap marshmallow fondant in WA, but just keep going. But yeah, I've used this mixed through with modelling chocolate to make really nice figures. And heat really is important for this. So I think what I'll do is heat this up a little bit in the microwave. So I'll just grab a microwave bowl and I'll be back in 15 seconds or so, because that is too hard for me. That'll help out. Okay, so here's the rest of the fat that I'm using, and smudge that down. Yeah, it's not a tidy endeavour. So I've got a couple of people on. I'll wander up and see you because it's a little bit too far away for me. So, oh, hi. Anyway. Now, hopefully I've not overdone that. Should be good. Alright, here we go, that's a bit warmer. That'll make my life easier. That's more like it. Now it's kneading much, much easier. So this forms a really nice, smooth fondant that is stretchy and delicious. And because of the vanilla and the cream of tartar, it shouldn't taste like you're eating school pens. So you're eating your kids' textures. So anyway, just work the rest of it through. Oh yeah, the heat difference is huge on that. I probably used more colouring than I needed to, but I didn't want to mess with the overall finished texture too much. But the upside is it means I don't have to end up with a soggy mess trying to get the colour right, because I've already accounted for all the liquid in here. And keep mixing. I do make a very short fondant. It's quite stretchy and it's quite pliable, but if you like a stretchier fondant, just add another teaspoon. And I might not have accounted for the different way that the cocoa behaves in this, so we'll see in a sec. Wow, that is really good, strong Tylose. You can tell because it sets up really fast. Just makes it that little bit firmer. So keep on kneading. And just for this one, I think I'm actually going to need to add the glycerin that I didn't think I'd need. So, how much glycerin? 1.5 teaspoons. Yep. And 1.5. What the glycerin does is it helps to produce a smoother product that doesn't dry out as quickly. Although with all the fat in this, it's not going to dry out too fast anyway. You've got to be careful not to add too much glycerin because it is hydrophilic. It sucks water from the air once it's in your fondant, but again, with the amount of fat and Tylose in here, it all sort of just balances itself out. And I'm getting there with this one. There must have been a higher sugar content or corn syrup content in the colouring that I'm using, because this is a little bit drier. So I think the 30 odd grams of colouring that I used, I need to supplement some of that with a little bit more water. So, although I've got a pretty good product here, it's just a bit too firm. So I'll just slack that down a bit. And, where are we? These are about 5 grams, so I'll go 5, 10, another 10 grams of water added to that, and that should just help it come together nicely. So, what I've got though I could use for modelling really well. If I wanted to model with black fondant, this is very much, it feels just like clay. Feels like modelling chocolate actually, which is nice. And all the fat in here will make it a bit easier to blend the seams and work with. The Tylose makes it set and dry out and also gives it a bit more stretch. And if I just work that water through, so if you're following along at home or if you want to do the exact same recipe, add another 10 grams of water to it, I'd say. And I'll account for that in the recipe when I write it up and put it on the video. Yeah. So getting there. This is why I wanted to buy it today, but I was looking at the price of it, and for the amount that I'm going to use, I didn't want to actually pay money for it because yes, I am that cheap. And I know that I can make it, but yeah, sometimes it's just easier to buy things, so it's all good. Squidge that off. And having the feel of this, it's still a little bit too tight, so I'll add another 5 grams. Yeah, so it's still got a bit of stretch, but I'll add another 5 grams just to make sure. So most people are used to things like satin ice, which is a lot softer than what I make. I tend to make a very, very firm fondant because I like having the stability with it. It's just how I tend to work. Okay, so that's nearly right. And 5, yeah, just 5. So I can feel the texture improving as I do this. So if you start with the right amounts to begin with, then you won't have to keep adjusting it, but at least you can adjust it to suit your particular style. And cleaning this up is going to be a bit of a mess, but because there's so much fat, all this dark colour on my bench just wipes off, which is nice. Now we're getting there. Going to get myself a fondant sheeter one of these days because I can use a fondant sheeter to finish kneading it. And that's really one of my big dreams. So once you've got it fairly smooth, then a fondant sheeter just comes in and finishes it off. So that is perfect. So I've got enough stretch that when I put it on the cake I can readjust it. Sorry, I'm standing in the... So I've got enough stretch, but also it's firm enough that it'll hold up and it won't just keep stretching. So that is perfect black fondant. I'm out of breath, I'm very unfit, but I've got it sorted. So perfect black fondant, same colour as my shirt. And that is going to go over one of my show cakes, and I'm very happy with the result of that. So I just got to remember I added an extra 15 grams of water and the glycerin to it. Yeah, perfect shiny fondant. Get a good shine on that. It won't dry out too quickly because of all the fat in it. And that is lovely to work with. So again, if you like a softer fondant, just add another 5 grams of water to it. And very happy with that. I'll write it up, post it. If anyone's got any questions, just fire them back. And otherwise, have a great day. Thanks, people. Fondant.